Welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're taking a look at AI in autonomous vehicles, specifically focusing on the ethical considerations. And for a deeper understanding of everything we cover today, be sure to check out https LearnXYZ-In.
It's a really fascinating area because it brings together cutting-edge technology with really profound societal and philosophical questions.
Yeah, we're not just talking about cool cars that drive themselves. We're talking about the choices those cars will make and what that means for us as humans.
Exactly. We're talking about life and death decisions potentially and how we
Yeah.
program those decisions into machines.
Like, imagine a car having to choose between hitting a pedestrian or swerving into a barrier, potentially harming its passengers. Like, how do you even begin to program for something like that?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And there's no easy answer. But it all starts with understanding what AI and autonomous vehicles actually is. Like, how does this technology work at a basic level?
All right, let's break it down. So we're essentially talking about a complex system of sensors, cameras, and powerful data processing units that allow a vehicle to perceive its surroundings, make decisions, and navigate without human input.
Exactly. And it's all powered by AI, by algorithms that can process vast amounts of data in real time and make split-second decisions.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. And
Right.
companies like Tesla, Waymo, Cruise, they're not just dreaming about this anymore. They're out there testing and deploying these vehicles on public roads right now.
It's moving incredibly fast. And that's part of what makes the ethical considerations so urgent, right? We need to be having these conversations now before this technology becomes even more widespread.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the potential benefits are huge. I mean, think about safety, right?
Oh, yeah. Safety is the big one. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, estimates that over 90% of traffic accidents are due to human error.
So, in theory, if you remove the human element, you remove a huge chunk of those accidents.
That's the idea. AVs don't get tired, they don't get distracted, they don't drive under the influence. They're constantly monitoring the road and reacting to potential hazards.
And they can communicate with each other too, right?
Yeah,
Sharing data about traffic conditions and potential obstacles.
exactly. Imagine a network of AVs all talking to each other, optimizing routes, adjusting speed, and creating a much smoother, more efficient flow of traffic.
That could mean shorter commute times, less fuel consumption, fewer emissions.
And think about the potential for people who can't drive themselves, like the elderly or people with disabilities. AVs could give them a level of independence and mobility that they wouldn't otherwise have.
It all sounds pretty amazing, but then you get into this ethical minefield, right? Like, what happens when something goes wrong?
Yeah, that's where things get really tricky. If an AV crashes, who's responsible? The manufacturer, the software developer, the owner of the car.
And how do you program a machine to make life or death decisions in an unavoidable collision?
Like we were talking about earlier, do you prioritize the safety of the passengers or the pedestrians? And how do you even begin to quantify the value of human life in an algorithm?
It's a philosophical nightmare.
It is. And then you've got issues around data privacy. AVs are collecting massive amounts of data about our movements and driving habits, which raises all sorts of concerns about surveillance and who has access to that information.
It's a whole other layer of ethical complexity.
It is. And it's all connected to this bigger question of how much control we're willing to cede to machines.
And how much we trust those machines to make the right decisions, even in the most difficult circumstances.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to be exploring further in this deep dive. We're going to look at the ethical dilemmas posed by AVs, the different perspectives on these issues, and the challenges we face as a society in navigating this uncharted territory.
It's heavy stuff, but it's so important to be having these conversations now.
Absolutely. Because the future of transportation is here, and it's coming whether we're ready for it or not.
Okay, so let's get into some of the specifics here. Like, who are the big players in this autonomous vehicle space? We hear names like Tesla, Waymo, but like, what are they actually up to?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of companies vying for a piece of this pie, but some are definitely ahead of the pack.
Yeah, who comes to mind?
Well, Waymo, for example, they've been laser focused on building a really solid self-driving system, one that can handle, those tough city environments.
Right, not just highways, but like navigating traffic lights and pedestrians and all that.
Exactly. They're already testing in places like Phoenix, San Francisco, and even Austin, where they've partnered with Uber, actually.
Oh, interesting. So even the ride-sharing giants are getting in on this.
Oh, absolutely. It makes total sense for them, right? Like Uber and Lyft, they see the writing on the wall. They need to adapt to this autonomous future.
So by partnering with someone like Waymo, they can kind of stay ahead of the curve, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's a win-win for both sides. Uber gets the cutting edge tech, and Waymo, they get access to like this massive network of potential riders.
Yes, sir.
And we're seeing this kind of collaboration all over the place, like traditional car makers,
Yeah.
Ford, General Motors, they're teaming up with tech companies like Argo AI and Cruise to speed up the whole development process.
Yeah, it really does feel like it takes a village to get this right.
It totally does. It's such a complex thing. You need expertise in software, AI, sensors, the car itself. No single company can do it all.
So you mentioned Waymo's focus on cities. Are there other companies kind of specializing in different areas?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One that I find really interesting is this company called Wave. They're a UK startup, and they're taking a very different approach.
How so?
So instead of relying on pre-mapped routes and like detailed 3D models of the environment, they're using what they call a camera-first approach.
Camera first. Okay, I'm intrigued. What does that mean?
Basically, their system relies mainly on cameras to see and understand the world, kind of like we do as humans.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're training their AI on huge amounts of real-world driving data, so it can learn and adapt to different conditions, like a human driver would.
So it's more about teaching the AI to think for itself rather than just following a set of pre-programmed rules.
Exactly, exactly. It's way more flexible, way more adaptable, and this could be really useful for navigating unpredictable environments, places where you don't have perfect maps.
Okay, that makes sense. And what are they aiming for with this tech? Like, are they going after the ride-sharing market too?
Actually, Wave is taking a broader approach. They're working with big car makers like Jaguar Land Rover to put their tech into actual production vehicles.
Oh, wow. So they're going straight for the consumer market.
Yeah, their vision is more about this gradual shift to autonomy, starting with, advanced driver assistance features and eventually getting to full self-driving.
So more of a step-by-step approach.
Yeah, it's a strategy that could make the whole transition a lot smoother, I think. People get used to these features like lane keeping and adaptive cruise control, and it's less of a shock when the car starts doing more and more on its own.
Yeah, it's all about building trust, right?
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked a lot about US and Europe, but what about other parts of the world? Like, is Asia doing much in this space?
Yeah, good point. I'm curious about that too.
Well, China in particular, they're making huge progress. One company that stands out is BYD Auto. They're a big electric vehicle manufacturer, and they're really pushing into self-driving as well.
I've heard of BYD.
Yeah.
Aren't they known for their more affordable electric cars?
That's right. That's right. They've been a major player in the EV market for years, and now they're using all that experience with electric powertrains and batteries to build their own autonomous driving platform. They call it God's Eye, actually.
God's Eye. Wow, that's a pretty ambitious name.
Aye.
What's so special about their system?
Well, for one thing, it's designed to be like really scalable and cost effective. BYD, they want to put this God's Eye system into a whole range of their vehicles, including their cheaper models.
Interesting. So while some companies are going for the high-end, fully autonomous vehicles, BYD is trying to make self-driving features accessible to everyone.
Exactly, exactly. It's a smart strategy, especially for emerging markets where price is a big factor.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing to see all these different approaches, right? Some focused on ride sharing, some on integrating with existing cars, others on making it affordable for the masses.
It is. It's such a dynamic landscape, and it's just the beginning,
Yeah.
As the technology keeps getting better and the costs come down, we're going to see even more innovation, even more new players coming into the game.
It's exciting, but also a little daunting. How do we even keep up with all this?
Yeah, it's a lot to process, but I think the key is to stay informed, to keep asking questions, and to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this technology is going to impact all of us.
Oh, okay, so we've talked a lot about the tech side of things, the companies, the potential impact, but what about the average person out there? The everyday driver. How are they feeling about all this?
Yeah, that's a really important question, right? I mean, ultimately, this technology is meant to serve us, so public perception really matters. And honestly, it's kind of mixed right now. Makes sense. I imagine some people are excited about the possibilities, less traffic, safer roads, maybe even being able to take a nap while the car drives itself.
Oh, for sure. There's definitely a lot of buzz around the potential benefits, especially the safety aspect.
Yeah, I mean, if these cars can really reduce accidents, That's a huge win.
Absolutely. But there's also a lot of hesitation, a lot of concern, which is understandable, right? I mean, it's one thing to trust a human driver, but trusting a machine with your life, that's a whole other level.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think a lot of people are probably wondering, like, how do I know this thing isn't going to, like, suddenly glitch out and drive me into a ditch?
Right, exactly. And that trust, it has to be earned. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of testing, a lot of transparency from these companies, showing people how these systems work, explaining the safety protocols, all that.
Yeah, and it's not just about the technical side of things either, right? Like, there's a whole psychological aspect to this.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Driving is a very personal thing for a lot of people. It's about freedom, independence, being in control. So letting go of that control, handing it over to a machine, that can be a really difficult thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, some people might feel like they're losing something, part of their identity almost.
Absolutely. So it's not just about building safe cars, it's about addressing these human factors, the psychological and emotional aspects of this whole transition.
Right, so it sounds like education and communication are going to be key here.
Oh, totally, totally. It's an ongoing process. Like, as the technology evolves, so too will public perceptions and expectations. So we need to keep having these conversations, keep adapting our approach.
Yeah, it's a constantly moving target, I guess. So speaking of moving forward, let's look ahead a bit. Like, what do you think the next, say, 5 to 10 years holds for autonomous vehicles?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot more AVs out in the real world, especially in more controlled environments at first, like college campuses, airports, maybe retirement communities, places where the conditions are a bit more predictable.
Right, so starting small and scaling up.
Exactly, exactly. And we'll also see a lot more of those advanced driver assistance features becoming standard in regular cars, which I think will help people get used to the idea of the car doing more of the driving.
Kind of easing people into it.
Exactly. And I think we're also going to see a lot of experimentation with different business models, different ways of using these vehicles.
Like what kind of thing?
Oh, I don't know, like self-driving delivery vans, autonomous taxis, maybe even like mobile grocery stores that come to your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about all the possibilities.
It is. But in all this excitement, we can't forget about the ethical side of things. We have to make sure these vehicles are designed and used in a way that puts people first.
Right, like all those issues we talked about earlier, data privacy, algorithmic bias, the impact on jobs, all that needs to be carefully considered.
Absolutely. The technology is powerful, but it's up to us to make sure it's used for good.
It's a lot to think about, but it's an important conversation to have.
It really is. Because this technology, it has the potential to change the world, to make our lives easier, safer, more connected. But we have to be smart about it. We have to be thoughtful and proactive.
Well said. So for anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into this whole world of AI and autonomous vehicles, be sure to check out https://learnxyz.in. They've got tons of great information on all the stuff we talked about today.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to visit https://learnxyz.in to keep learning about the future of technology. Thank you.